the News Channel 5 Network. This is SportsLine.
Hey there, SportsLine on your television. Steve Layman here with you. Glad you are here with us tonight on News Channel 5 Plus. And it is a historic day in Nashville sports, specifically on the campus of Belmont University. It is an amazing story of the rise of the athletic program over there and really the rise of the university. Think about this. 25 years ago, Belmont was an NAIA power. They were a power in basketball and in other sports and what they did. But a lot of people thought that's where it was. It was this small, religiously affiliated school in Nashville, and NAIA kind of seemed like a good place for it. And then all of a sudden they had this idea to move 1996, 1997 into the NCAA athletic framework and structure. And at the time, a lot of people thought they were crazy. They thought, you're not going to have any success doing that. You're going to struggle. It's never going to take hold. You're going to regret this decision. And I think today, everyone around the Belmont campus would tell you that it was the best decision they ever made, because Belmont has not only proven itself athletically, certainly on the basketball court, but in many other sports as well. But it's expanded the role of the university. As someone wisely once said, that athletics is sort of like the front porch of the university. It's what people see on the outside. And when you start to have success in that area, then people look into all the other areas and they go to school there and they look into the different disciplines that you have, and the school expands and enrollment goes up. Giving goes up. All of those sort of things kind of funnel out of what people see in the athletic department. And Belmont has been a true success story of betting on athletics and seeing how the campus can take off after that. A few years after getting into Division I, they joined the Atlantic Sun Conference. There was a real question about how they'd be able to compete there. Not too long after that, they started to have great success in that league. Won 5 conference championships in 7 years before then moving into the Ohio Valley Conference. A little bit closer to home, little stiffer competition in terms of basketball at that time. And people wondered at that point, back in 2012, how Belmont would do with that transition. You were dominating the A-Sun, but this is a little different level in the OVC. How are you going to do? How are you going to make that transition? Maybe you shouldn't have done it right now, because maybe the Atlantic Sun was your perfect fit. Belmont just rolls right into the OVC and wins the title and goes to the NCAA tournament in its very first year. There were 7 regular season titles. Been to the NCAA tournament multiple times. They got the school's first ever at-large bid a few years ago. Won the school's first ever NCAA tournament game a few years ago. Along the way, the women's basketball program became a power. It's now been to 5 consecutive NCAA tournaments. This is a program that has just continued to grow and grow and grow, and alongside that, the university has grown and grown and grown. You just drive by the campus and see all the buildings that weren't there a decade ago, let alone 2 decades ago, heck, let alone a couple years ago. And just this summer, they opened up the Crockett Center for Athletic Excellence. Great basketball and indoor sporting facility right next to the new tennis center as well. It is a fabulous facility, on par with any school of that size in the country. And the day they opened it, Athletic Director Scott Corley said, "This building allows us to dream big." Well, now those dreams have quite literally taken Belmont to a different level. Today, Belmont was introduced as the 11th member of the Missouri Valley Conference, one of the most historic and prestigious college conferences in the country, certainly on the basketball side of things. It's routinely kind of a top 10 conference in college basketball. It often gets multiple bids in. It's seemingly a first-round game every year. gets team to the Sweet 16 like last year with Loyola, and in the past decade, it's had 2 different schools go to the Final Four. That's the type of pedigree that Belmont is now entering in the Missouri Valley Conference. It is a totally different level from where it had been, and it is a remarkable story to think about where it has come from. Not all that long ago, a quarter century ago, 25 years ago in the NAIA, and now it's made all those jumps with people shaking their head and saying, what are you doing? You're nuts to make this move. And now here Belmont is. And I don't think anybody's saying they're nuts anymore, because they have established what they're capable of doing and what this school is capable of doing along the way. Now, will they have the same level of success in the Missouri Valley? It's going to be difficult, because every school in that conference puts a lot into basketball. They've got the resources to compete, and they want to be good. It's going to be a challenge night in and night out. But are you going to doubt Belmont based off of that track record? I certainly am not. And we are happy to be joined tonight on the program by Athletic Director Scott Corley from over, I think he might still be in his office over there at the Belmont campus. But Scott, it's been a huge day. Congratulations on this. And just, I know it's been a whirlwind for you, but what does this mean, do you think, for your programs and for the University of Belmont to accept this invitation to join the Missouri Valley Conference?
Well, Steve, thanks. I must confess I did come home, but excited to be on here with you, and you summarized everything so very well. You know, for our perspective, it's a historic day. It is a day where, you know, unequivocally, everyone around Belmont athletics is extremely excited about what the opportunity in the Missouri Valley presents for us and this university. You know, I think you said it well with the front porch analogy. Dr. Greg Jones and Dr. Fisher before Dr. Jones, they valued athletics and they understood the importance of athletics. And if you do it right, with the right coaches and the right student athletes and the right core values, it can be such a tremendous asset for the overall university. And so, you know, very excited about the opportunity that's ahead of us, the challenge that's ahead of us. But it is, I'm still trying to wrap my brain around how Belmont's been so blessed in a short amount of time to get to take advantage of an opportunity like this. There's a lot of schools out there that would do anything to get into a conference like the Missouri Valley, and they kind of handpicked us, and they recognized the value we could bring to them, and it's a credit to what's been accomplished over those years. But you know, Steve, I can go back actually 35 years ago when I played, and I was Rick Byrd's first recruit, and we were playing in a gym, Stripling Gymnasium, that was the size of a high school gym. We didn't even have a weight room that was that you could really be proud of at all. And Coach Byrd just came in and just went about his business. And, you know, by the time I was a junior, we were a very good NAIA program, and it's a credit to him and the vision that he had. So, but to do what we've done in 25 years, it just takes so many great people that are, you know, with leadership, vision, execution, you name it. And we're the ones that get to take advantage of that with this announcement today.
Scott, I was going to ask you this more towards the end of the interview, but you've kind of segued perfectly into it. You talk about Coach Byrd, you talk about President Fisher, some of the other people in leadership at the university. Do you think all of these changes and the transitions over the years, does it go to an individual person or to a select few individuals, or is there something about the Belmont campus and the mission of the school that has lent itself to this tremendous growth?
Yeah, I think it's to single out one or two people is unfair to a lot of people who have made Belmont University what it is. You know, we're obviously a very, very small part of the overall university's growth. But there are a few you always have to say, boy, that was a courageous move. And that was, you know, back in '96 with Dr. Bill Trout, the president at the time, for him to make that decision, because that was not normal. You don't do NAIA to Division I. It was usually NAIA to Division II, and then Division II to Division I. And so for him to, I'm sure he had a lot of support with boards and other folks like that, but that is one that you do single out and go, wow, that was a bold move. And then, what Dr. Fisher did when he got here in 2000 is just amazing. It's just amazing. I mean, the vision he had, the ideas that he had to grow the university and really, think big by having a presidential debate. I still remember that debate was the year after we almost beat Duke in the NCAA tournament. And I think the combination of those two events catapulted Belmont on a national stage, and we just took it from there and ran. And I know there's a lot of things in between 2000 and when the debate first was, but I think there is a culture. I know there's a culture on this campus, Steve, of innovation, taking chances, being really futuristic thinking, and a credit to our board over those years, to Dr. Fisher and the entire senior leadership team for staying focused on that, but also being willing to take risk. And I think it's got to be a culmination of all those things. And look, at the end of the day, we're a Christian university, so we also say God has a hand in it, and God did. I mean, God has blessed Belmont beyond measure. And it's also this reciprocal, symbiotic relationship with the city of Nashville. I think we've helped Nashville grow, and Nashville has helped Belmont grow. There's no doubt about it. So it's just a unique set of factors, and God has blessed us all, anybody related to Belmont.
We're visiting with Belmont Athletic Director Scott Corley tonight on the program, the day that Belmont officially accepted its invitation to become the 11th member of the Missouri Valley Conference. Scott, if you'll indulge me, we've seen a lot of conference realignment discussion, and we've seen realignment throughout the course of 2021. It really kind of started with Oklahoma and Texas in the SEC, and that's trickled down to dominoes in a lot of places. But generally, it's all about the football and the brand there. This is unique because Belmont is known around the country really as a basketball school, quote unquote, with all the success you've had on the hardwood. And that's how the Missouri Valley Conference is known, as a basketball-centric league. So how perfect of a fit is it to mesh those two brands together?
Well, it's about as good as you can get from our perspective, and it was what was really attractive to us for sure. I mean, you're right. Football's driving so many of these national conversations on who's going to end up where and whatnot. And for us, we felt the natural progression for us, given that basketball is our preeminent sport, is to align with a conference that embraces basketball, and the Missouri Valley does it. We know that. While they have football playing schools, they made it very clear to us, we want to be known as a basketball league. We want to be the 7th best basketball conference in the country. And you go, 7th? That's not aspirational. Well, that's behind the Power 5 and the Big East. And so if we can get to 7, which I'm confident we can do, I mean, that just speaks to where their priorities are, and that certainly aligns with our priorities, because as you said, we don't have football, and that was the thing in the OVC. We were the only private school, and we were only one of 2 teams that didn't play football, and so in a lot of ways that was always the the thing in the room. You're kind of like, all right, we're a little different here, but basketball is important to the OVC. Don't mistake me. And we had so many great, and still do this year. We'll have great rivalries with Murray and Austin Peay and some of those schools. But as they're looking at conference realignment and the like, they have to think about football. Well, Missouri Valley, they wanted a basketball school, and for us, that just was music to our ears.
I think some of those rivalries might tick up a notch this year with you guys on your way out the door from the OVC and into the Missouri Valley. Whenever you're talking about conference realignment, Scott, it's about timing is of the essence in a lot of cases, given the landscape that we talked about and the turmoil, frankly, in the OVC with 3 other members over the course of the past couple of years announcing their decisions to move on to the Atlantic Sun to play football there. Did Belmont feel like did you feel like you had to make this move now for the stability of your own program?
I wouldn't say for our program. It just felt like if we knew we were going to make the move, it felt like the right thing to do. Not string this along, not pretend to the OVC that, we're committed to them and we're in this together. It seemed like the right thing to do for the Missouri Valley, so we could announce it. They could, we could work on scheduling for next year, those types of things. Steve, I don't know if there's a exact right way to do these things. I mean, these are difficult decisions. They're, we formed great relationships with the OVC. And it's a tough call to make when you're calling the commissioner to let her know you made a decision to depart. And, we just felt it was the right thing to do. And whether it is or not, I don't know. And, but we wanted to handle ourselves with integrity. We wanted to do everything the right way. And as we looked at it, we felt the sooner we could get this out, the better.
Well, it comes out today. Now you move into the OVC. I'm curious about the perspective of some of the other sports before we dive back into basketball. The OVC has for so long been a good home for you in the essence that the footprint's all right here. It's basically a busing conference around. Now you move into the Missouri Valley. Logistics become a little bit more of a challenge, but the thing that's notable to me is I believe every one of your programs is going to be a Missouri Valley member out of this, where in the past you've had kind of to feed off a couple programs. I think soccer's been playing in the Horizon League over the last several years. And so how much did that factor in as well of having a home like the Missouri Valley for all your sports?
Yeah, to have all the sports line up, there is one sport where we won't be, and that's men's tennis. And that's, unfortunate. Right now, the Missouri Valley only has 2 schools that sponsor men's tennis. You got to have 6 to get an automatic qualifier. So those 2 schools play in the summit for tennis, but every other sport aligns great. And you're right, men's soccer for us was in the Horizon. These last couple of years, we moved to the SoCon, the Southern Conference, 3 years ago. And so we will be able to pull men's soccer in to the Missouri Valley, but we do lose men's tennis. And I would just point out on that, men's tennis in the Ohio Valley was going to need to find some schools as well, because if we had stayed in the OVC, there still would have been only 4 men's tennis schools. So, but it was nice when we lined it up. It was like, wow, this is great. This is going to be great for all our programs. When you look at all the different sports in the Missouri Valley, they're all really good and really competitive. I mean, volleyball has had multiple bids, I think 15 out of the last 17 years. I mean, that's saying something there. Baseball has been really good. Men's soccer, Missouri State last year made it to Sweet 16 and finished the year, I think, ranked 12th. So there's, I think that gets us excited as well, that it's not just, opportunities in basketball with multi-bids to get into the NCAA tournament. These other, types of sports that I just mentioned will give us, I think, a greater opportunity as well. So we're excited about that. Obviously I got to figure out men's tennis, and that'll be an order of business that I'm going to get on immediately. I wanted to get, this announcement out of the way, but I think there'll be some affiliate conference membership opportunities for them.
I would think a lot of conferences would be very interested in that new tennis center you have, so that should certainly help out there, Scott. When we talked about some of those logistics, obviously there's going to be a lot more plane flights in this league, and you said you've already talked to some donors about helping out with some of that, and they're excited about the move and the change for the university and specifically the basketball programs. Do you have any idea the Missouri Valley Conference television package for basketball is certainly at a higher level than the OVC's current television packages. Do you have any idea what this can potentially mean for Belmont from a revenue perspective?
Yeah, I think our approach all along has been, you almost have to look at it. What's this going to look like over 5 or 10 years? There's certainly, some exit fees we'll have to pay. There's some admission fees into the Missouri Valley. You lose your OVC conference distribution this year by, leaving the conference. So, when we looked at it long term, though, between, to your point, the Missouri Valley media contract, and that I think it's up for renewal in 24 or 25. Don't quote me on that, Steve. But I think the addition to us into that league with the Nashville market should help in negotiations for higher media rights. And so I think between that, obviously the opportunity to earn more units in the men's basketball tournament. If you can get 2 teams in and you can win a couple games, you're just accruing a lot more units. And Missouri Valley has shown they can do that and have had a lot of success doing that. But those are hard to predict, as you know, Steve. So it's a little bit hard to model out the revenue side of it because you just don't know what that media contract's going to look like. You got to assume it's going to be better. Obviously, the tournament in St. Louis, the Arch Madness, does extremely well. Hopefully, it'll only do better with our fan base coming up there, buying up tickets, that kind of stuff. So we view it definitely over the long haul. We will generate more revenue by being in the Missouri Valley, but it's really hard to say how much and what's the magnitude of the increase.
Belmont Athletic Director Scott Corley, our guest here tonight on SportsLine. The day that Belmont was introduced as the next member of the Missouri Valley Conference, that'll go into effect next July 1st. Belmont will be a full-playing member next year. Scott, I want to transition into basketball now. And when we look at this, obviously you just mentioned the units that you can get by winning in the NCAA tournament. That's the goal, obviously, for your program. You got that first win a couple seasons ago under Rick Byrd. And now the goal is to even go farther. Win a round of 64 game, get to a Sweet 16. The Missouri Valley's had 2 teams in the last decade get to the Final Four. How much did that factor into this, that getting into the Missouri Valley, how much do you think it helps you just to get into the tournament in the first place? And how much do you think it helps you potentially take those next steps or knock down those doors, as Casey Alexander told me earlier today, about moving on in the big dance?
I think it helps a lot. Just look at the track record. Last 13 first-round games, the Missouri Valley's 12-1 in those. And what that tells me is, and it's not just the same team. So what that tells me is it's a really good league, a deep league. And if you can come out and you can get to the, win either the conference championship or get to the finals of the conference championship and get an at-large bid, you are going to be prepared to play in the NCAA tournament. And the likelihood is you're going to get a higher seed if you have a really good season and win that conference tournament. I think our highest seed coming out of the ASUN or the OVC was a 12, and it may be 11, but a lot of times we're in that 14, 15 range, and everyone knows those are just really unlikely upsets. There's always been a few, but it really, the odds are not in your favor. But if you can get, 8 to 10 seed, your odds of winning increase tremendously. And when you're playing, like you said, there are no gimmies in this league. And so when you get through that conference gauntlet and in the tournament and get into the NCAA, you're ready. You're battle tested and you're ready, and you're going to be confident going in there that you can win. So, you look at a Loyola. 8 years ago, they were struggling in the Horizon League, make the move to the Missouri Valley, made the investments they needed to make. But quite honestly, they've told me they were behind where we are when we're making the move to the Missouri Valley. So, to see what they've done, it certainly is inspirational to think, why can't we do what they've done? Very similar schools, very similar markets. Our new practice facility, I've said it a lot today, the Crockett Center, man, it upped our game, and it upped our opportunities to think big. And I know you said that in your early comments, and that is true. It's a big reason. why we're so excited. And look, our fan base has got to realize, the days of going 16-2 in the conference. While we still hope that's the case, it's going to be a lot tougher. But 16-2 in the OVC and losing in the championship, you're probably not getting into the tournament. If you're, and I'm making this up, if you're, 14-6 in the Missouri Valley and get to the conference finals, you got a chance to get the at-large if you don't win the tournament.
Well, that was certainly the case this year for your team. You were 26-4 overall. You lose in the conference tournament final, and you not only don't get into the NCAA tournament, you don't even get into the NIT. So certainly that's a scenario that will be different for you in the Missouri Valley Conference. If you have an excellent year like that, the at-large chances certainly increase. Scott, I'm going to ask you kind of a question that may be hard to even answer for you, because it's not really hypothetical, but it's certainly a best guess scenario. But I've got you here for about a half an hour, so I'll go ahead and do it anyway. You just mentioned it. When I think about the two programs in the Missouri Valley that have been to the Final Four in the last decade, there's Wichita State about 9 years ago, with that great team with Fred VanVleet and Ron Baker and those guys with Greg Marshall. And they actually used that to leave the Missouri Valley Conference, and they've had less success moving out of that league on the national stage. They've gotten less far in the NCAA tournament. Loyola was struggling in the Horizon League, as you mentioned. They get in, and now in the last 4 years, they've been to a Final Four, and then this year, they knocked off one of the best teams in the country in Illinois in the second round and got to a Sweet 16 this year. So what is it about the Missouri Valley that seems to sort of raise all the ships, but really put certain programs on kind of a pedestal every year?
And that is a good question.
I told you it'd be tough to answer.
That is. I think a lot of it just starts with just expectations, right? And it's a proud league. And I think Casey was throwing this stat around. I mean, every team in the league, I think, has won an NCAA tournament game since we joined Division I. And 6 of them have made it to the Sweet 16 or whatever. I'm probably screwing up some of those statistics, Steve, but you get the point. I think it's a very proud league. I think it's every game, every road game for us, we're going to be in an environment that we're not necessarily used to in the OVC outside of going to Murray, where it's a really hostile environment. I mean, you look at Evansville. Evansville is obviously 2.5 hours away. A program with a proud history, but recently hasn't been as successful as they would like. Well, they still average over 5,000 fans a game, and it matters. It matters to that fan base. And so, I think there's just, maybe a different set of expectations in being a proud league where you can, as a coach or even an administrator, you can look people in the eye and say, it's been done before because we've done it here in the Valley, and that can play a part of it. And it's just, again, it's a league that's had really good coaches and a lot of really good players. And so at the end of the day, you still got to go out and execute and get it done. But they've consistently shown they can do it. So those things, as you know, feed off of themselves from a mental standpoint.
All right, Scott, last question before I let you go. Such an exciting time for Belmont, but as you mentioned, there's expectations throughout this league. And there's certainly expectations at Belmont. I said in my monologue, nobody should doubt Belmont now, given everything, because people thought you were crazy when you went to Division I. They thought you were crazy in the A-Sun. They thought you were crazy going to the OVC. Now, I'm not sure there's those doubters out there, but because of all the success you've had, it's sort of just become accustomed that Belmont's going to be good and win a championship and get to the NCAA tournament. So as the athletic director and the steward of the entire program, what are the expectations for Belmont as you head into the Missouri Valley Conference and up that level just a year from now?
Well, I would answer that, Steve, is I've got an extreme amount of confidence, and I'll bet on my coaches, the culture that we've established, the winning expectations that we've established. I'll bet on that and on my coaches and our student athletes every day. I think we're up for the challenge. As the leader of the department and as a competitor that I am, my expectations is we're going to go in there and compete. Now, I also understand it's sports and it's athletics, and you got to stay healthy, and you got to get a couple calls to go your way, things like that. So that's part of it, but that's part of it in the OVC too. And so I just think, there's so much positive momentum. I think you spoke to it. There's just a winning culture. And so if we're not going into the Valley with the expectations that we're going to compete at a high level, then we shouldn't be making the move. And I know from the board chair to the president to everyone else, they have stated we're going to support you because our plan is not to go into the Valley and be in the lower half. So I'm excited about it. I mean, clearly we got to still do it. Our coaches got to recruit the right kids. And we've got to execute and get it done on the field of play. But why not? I mean, that's what we're in this business for, right? Is to take on those challenges. So I'm excited.
Well, Scott, it is certainly an exciting day, and I think all basketball fans are looking forward to Arch Madness in a couple years and looking forward to some real battles there in a really good Missouri Valley Conference. And like I said, I don't think anybody who's been paying attention is going to doubt Belmont's ability to go in there and compete and to win ultimately and get back to the NCAA tournament. Scott Corley, congratulations. I know this has been a lot of work. I know it's been a long process, but I think today's a really special day for you and your school.
Yeah, these are fun days as an AD. Believe me, this has been a blast. And while we're looking forward, we got a lot of things to still accomplish in the OVC. So hopefully, people watching this will come out and support our basketball teams and really help, because we got a chance for this year to be extremely special as well. So, but Steve, thanks for your time and all you do covering us. We really appreciate it. It meant a lot that you were there today, so thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, Scott. Anytime. Thanks so much for your time tonight as well. We will see you soon. And he's right about that. This year's Belmont basketball team going to be pretty good, maybe knocking down a couple of those doors Casey Alexander was talking about today. This year with that squad. Coming up, we'll hear from Casey Alexander about this move and what it means specifically for his basketball program. That's coming up next here on SportsLine on News Channel 5+.